Hi everyone, welcome to Economic Odyssey. This is the first microeconomics chapter that I'll be explaining. These are the two recommended books for this course, and these are all the sections that I'll be covering in this lecture. Okay, 1.1, the scope of economics. So let's start with understanding what does economics mean. Well, economics is the study of how agents choose to allocate scarce resources and how these choices affect our society. So what does scarce resources mean is something that we'll look into detail when we start to move along this lecture. So what does microeconomics mean then? Well, if economics is the study of how agents choose to allocate resources, then microeconomics is the study of how individuals, firms, households, and governments make choices and how those choices affect the price allocation of scarce resources as well as the well-being of the economic agent. Economic agents is also something that we will look forward to when we move down this lecture. So let's start with the first question. Is a Facebook free? So what do you guys think? Is Facebook free? So I'd say in theory yes, but Facebook does not charge us to use its services. However, it takes our time and it takes us away from things that we could be doing otherwise, like playing, reading, or studying. So we can say that every hour we spend on Facebook, we are giving up the alternative option to do something in the hour differently. So instead of using the hour for Facebook, we could be doing something differently, like reading a book maybe. And so in theory, Facebook is free. However, it costs us in a different way. It costs us with our time. And so I would like to ask you guys the question: how do you guys spend your time when you're not using the social media platforms? Okay, so moving on, the scope of economics. So economists study all human behavior and think that human behavior is the outcome of choices and they are not directly related to money. Choice, not money, is the unifying one unit feature of all things that economists study. For example, this is Peter, and the orange thing is his family car. So George, his father, tells his son Peter to wash the family car. At first, it may seem that Peter does not have many options. However, there are several decision-making deals that Peter can decide to choose. He can wash the car. He can negotiate for an easier chore, like washing the dishes. Maybe he can refuse to carry out the car and then face the consequences, like reduced pocket money, maybe, or move out and live on his own terms. This may seem quite drastic and quite dramatic. However, it is considered as an approach and an option for Peter. So the option that Peter decides to choose will depict the outcome and reflect Peter's behavior. So this, in simpler terms, is what economists aim to analyze and study to understand the behavior of why people do what they do. So it's not just money that we look at in economics, it's also the human behavior and the factors that cause us to make those decisions. So coming on, is an economic agent. In the first slide, I mentioned that microeconomics looks at like economic agents. So an economic agent is an individual or a group that makes a decision or makes choices. So a few examples of economic agents in terms of individual agents are when a person is in charge of making decisions with no need of approval, where it's likely to be carried out. So the choice to eat meat or become vegan, in business perspective, to offshore or reshore its business, to attend lectures or to skip them, are all personal choices. These are the choices that you make and you don't need any sort of approval. So if you decide not to attend your uni lecture today, that will be your own decision rather than someone influencing it, like your parents when you were in school, where you had to negotiate certain terms to go to school or to not go to school. It's similar with becoming a vegan or eating meat. You might decide to become vegan because of the pros and cons of eating meat, or you might decide not to be vegan because of the pros and cons of being vegan. Yeah, similarly in business as well. A business can decide to offshore or reshore its business in terms of cost reduction and profit maximization. Yeah, so this diagram basically depicts an individual who does not need any approval for their decision to be carried out. Moving on to the example of group agents. Group agents are a group of people, obviously, that come to an agreement and decide out and carry out decisions with the highest number of agreement. Best example would be government, armed forces, and university. So in university, we guys have a survey that looks at our needs, and as a group, as a whole university, we decide that to carry out a certain thing or not. That's when a good example in university would be the student union. We put in our request, and the student union decides as a group whether or not they should bring out a certain club, and that's a pretty good example of decisions carried out with the highest number of agreement. A government also similarly, there's votes taken in the parliament. If they have the highest number of votes, a certain decision or a certain rule legislation is carried out. So sometimes to simplify the analysis, economists treat these groups as a single decision maker without having to worry about how individuals in the group contribute to the decision. So basically, in government, if there's let's say 100 people, economists don't go around asking all those 100 people about why they decide to make a certain decision and how does it impact. They instead treat the 100 people whole as a group, and that makes it easier for the economists to decide and select the data. Also, it helps economists focus on a broader strand of data rather than individuals' results or opinion. So there's two types of economic analysis that economists carry out. The first one is positive economics. It describes what people actually do, whereas it is objective positive economics, whereas normative economics is subjective and recommends what people ought to do. Positive economics isn't dependent or influenced by anything or anyone, whereas normative statement is dependent and influenced by external factors. Positive economics use factual statements, which can be confirmed with data, and normative economics looks at personal feelings, taste, or opinion. So these two types of economic analysis is what economists tend to focus on when making data or when selecting a broader strand of data. So normative economics is you whether like ice cream or you don't, and why you like that certain flavor of ice cream, and why you like to eat the ice cream at Baskin Robbins rather than at a different place. Positive economics is they look at data. Is when it's mostly when businesses use it to predict their cash flows, to forecast certain things, and also this is quite similar with how governments take on decision making. They use positive economics to look at previous data and forecast what's going to happen to the country's economic situation. So yeah, economics use positive economics, which can be confirmed with data. Okay, so now we're going to look at economic resources. So this is basically, we discussed scarce resources in our first slide, where we looked at the definition of what does economics mean, and it talked about allocating resources. So to allocate scarce resources is when people have unlimited wants in a world filled with limited resources. If you guys remember, during COVID, masks, toilet paper, and hand sanitizers were limited and was not meeting the people's need, as people kept on hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizers, and seeing that toilet paper and hand sanitizers are limited resources, we can say pretty easily that those things are scarce resources because they weren't available easily. So another example of this could be that G-Shock has launched a limited edition watch in honor of Bruce Lee. Again, this is a fictional scenario. The watch is on the market for 24 hours and has been manufactured to 10 watches only at the price of £8,000. So in case of G-Shock, it would obviously sell those watches to people who are able and willing to pay for the watch. It's full price, the complete £8,000 in the duration of 24 hours that G-Shock has set. So obviously, as a business, G-Shock is going to sell the watches to people who are willing to pay and not wait for the people who have the watch in their shopping basket to ensure its limitations as a business. And this is a pretty good example of scarce resources, as in case of economic agents, in case of the consumers, people buying the watch, there are many factors to consider, i.e. to spend money on the watch, to waste 24 hours trying to get a watch, to spend time deciding whether you want to spend like your time in a different way. And this is similar to the Facebook case study that we looked at in the first slide. You can either spend the time on the G-Shock website, or you can do something else. You can spend your hour maybe working and earn some money. So there are many things that one has to consider when buying the watch in terms of economic agents. So we know that there are many Bruce Lee fans who would like to get their hands on the watch, but not everyone was able to do so due to the quantity that has been manufactured, due to the price that has been set, and the time conditions to buy those watch. And we can say that these kind of decisions determine how scarce resources, in this case the watches, are allocated in a modern economy to the consumers who are able to pay for them. So resources are allocated, especially scarce resources are allocated to people who are willing and able to pay for the resources and are able to meet the conditions set for those resources. Moving on to our three principles of economics. So the three principles of economics are optimization, equilibrium, and empiricism. So optimization is choosing the option which leads to a higher gain that the alternative option does not have. Equilibrium is a situation where no agent would benefit personally by changing their own behavior, and the agent feels that this is the best option at the current time, i.e. the best feasible option or the best he can do in that situation. Empiricism is when economists use data to test theory to determine what's causing things to happen in the world. It is a part of logic reasoning, and again, data is used. So we can say that empiricism falls under positive economics rather than normative economics. Normative economics would look at equilibrium and optimization. So yeah, that's what we will look at in the coming. Okay, so let's look at optimization in further depth. Optimization is when the economic agent tries to choose the best feasible option given the information they have. So by feasible option, we mean that the product or the thing that you're trying to buy, you're trying to optimize, has to be on the market. It can't be out of stock or out of budget for the consumer, i.e. the economic agent. So this is certainly an obvious fact. If you have a budget of £5 and the product you're trying to get is of £10, you wouldn't be able to buy, and thus it would be out of budget to do so, and it wouldn't be a feasible option to have. Again, it can't be out of stock. If it does not exist on the market physically, then you're not going to be able to buy it. So an example of feasible option could be that a person cannot work more than 24 hours a day. We obviously have 24 hours a day in this planet. So yeah, it's safer to say that we won't be able to work more than 24 hours a day, i.e. we won't be able to work 25 hours or 26 hours a day. Another example would be that if you're trying to attend a meeting in Edinburgh and London, you wouldn't be able to do it at the same time in person. You can either be in London at that time in person, or you can either be in Edinburgh at the same time in person, but you can't be there at, at both locations on the same time and in person. So looking at it further, optimization basically means that you have weighed out the potential risk in a decision. Considering that we cannot see the future decision making, you just need to be quite logical and practical with your decision making skills. You have to weigh out the cost, the potential benefits, and the risk associated with each decision. You also have to look at how a decision is going to affect you and if it's the best feasible option. Again, the conditions have to be that they can't be out of stock, can't be on out of budget, and have to be on the market. So yeah, just keeping that in mind we have to look at the risk and the benefits as well. An example of optimized decision can be that Peter has an economics test on the 9th and he has 10 days to study for the test, which will be counted in his final grade. And economics is a moderate subject for Peter, i.e., he's not too good, he's not too bad in the subject. Economics is an okay subject for Peter. And these are the potential choices that he can make. So the first one is study for the test and as a result get a good grade. Not study for the test and obviously not get a good grade. Get a tutor to help consider the cost to help him with the subject, but you have to look at the cost involved. However, the benefit would be that the tutor helps him understand his weaker topics, minimizes the risk of not getting a good grade. And obviously, the decision of not getting a tutor does increase the risk of not understanding the chapters that he's not good in, and thus losing out on marks from those chapters because he hasn't got a clear understanding of it. And we can see that optimization that there obviously has loads of like options that we need to make the optimized decision, i.e., a feasible choice. But in the real world, there can be many more decisions that you need to take in order to be optimized, in order for the option to be feasible. So yeah, that's an important factor for you to. Okay, so moving on. The first thing we're going to be looking at is trades-off. Trades-off are where one benefit must be given in order to gain other benefits. We'll be looking at trade-off in depth when we move on further. But for now, we have budget constraint, is when a person can choose to do or buy without breaking their budget. And it looks at multiple options that a person can take to optimize that decision making. So an example is that Peter's 16th birthday is coming up and his father has decided to throw him a sweet 16 party, and he has a budget of around 3,500. So everything on the party list, from cakes to balloons, has been itemized by George and the party planner. However, Peter would really like pinata for his birthday, which would add pound 150 more to the budget. Now, George has two options. It's to either cancel the pinata or change or remove something from the party list to accommodate the pinata. So what does this mean is that George has a budget of 3,500. He can't exceed the budget that has been set, and he has to make choices that would either be to cancel the pinata or to remove something, so that the budget can just remain 3,500 rather than exceed something. And therefore, this could be an example of optimization and budget constraint, as George has to make a rational decision while staying in his party budget and not break the party budget, as well as have the pinata of it and to not have the pinata is something that he has to consider in order to really weigh out the potential risks without breaking the bank. A budget constraint is when a budget given equals option 1 or equals option 2, is basically the definition of budget constraint in simpler terms. So when we look at opportunity cost is the next best alternative foregone. So trade-off and opportunity cost, as you would notice, are quite similar. Trade-off is when one benefit must be given in order to gain other, and opportunity cost is the next best alternative foregone. So how are those two different is something that we will look at in the coming slides. Before now, an example of opportunity cost can be that Peter has the option to watch Mr. Beast's videos for entertainment. However, he could spend time studying for his upcoming economics test. If Peter decides to forego watching YouTube, he could spend that time studying, and that would be the opportunity cost for studying. So yeah, another option would be to buy a cake or to buy a croissant. So someone could decide to forego the croissant to get the cake, or to forego the cake to get the croissant. So it's the next best alternative foregone. You can't jump options. You have to pick the second best available option on the market in order to be optimized and feasible, and that is the definition of opportunity cost. So why is opportunity cost similar yet different to trade-off? Well, trade-off can be difficult. Like the example of Peter's birthday party, his dad only had to make two decisions. However, in real life, he would have to consider multiple factors, which can optimize a current situation. This, however, is not the case for opportunity cost, as mentioned previously, that we have to focus on the next best alternative and we can't jump the line to pick the best feasible option. So in terms and definition, they do seem similar. However, a trade-off, you have multiple options and you have to pick one, whereas opportunity cost, you just have to look at two options and just pick the next best one. I hope that's clear enough for you guys. Okay, after understanding the first principle, optimization, we'll be moving on to our second principle, equilibrium. So equilibrium is when all things are balanced and will roughly be the same. So an example of this can be the market price of petrol is £3 a gallon and the industry is said to be in equilibrium, and therefore it would have to be the industry would be in three conditions for the industry to be satisfied with equilibrium. Is that the amount of petrol produced by supplying companies will equal the amount of petrol purchased by the buyers. So supply equals demand, basically. The buyers can't purchase more, the suppliers can't supply a greater amount than the buyers being purchased. The oil companies would only operate wells where they can extract oil to produce petrol at a cost that is less than the market price of the gasoline. So we can say that the petrol costs £3. It would either have to cost the oil companies £3 or less than £3 to extract the oil. It can't cost £3.10 or can't cost £3.50 to extract oil. Otherwise, it would not be in equilibrium. The buyers of petrol would only use it for activities that are at least £3 a gallon, like driving. They won't use it for activities that are worth less than a gallon. So this, in case of buyers, is an alternate reality where they have to spend the £3 a gallon on something that is equivalent to the price they purchased it at, and they can't use it for something that is less than the price they purchased the gallon at. So in equilibrium, both buyers and sellers of petrol are optimizing given the market price of petrol. So neither parties would benefit by changing his or her behavior, and all things would be balanced, i.e. the supply and the demand, the operate and the buying of the petrol. So this is when the free rider problem comes in. This exists when an individual or group can enjoy the benefits of a situation without incurring the cost of it. An example of this is having a lazy roommate. In university, we all know there's this one person. Uh, they they tend to have us, or they tend to have other people do things for them. So it's when they backride on one or more of the roommates to sort out household issues. And to deal with free riders, a group needs to decide what is fair. Some sort of pressure needs to be put on a free rider to get them to contribute. However, this can't be said for markets, as they have no mechanism for deciding what is fair and just. This is equilibrium, is when we can say that a market can be equilibrium in the perfect world. However, it is not the case, and there is no regulations, or they don't have a set of rules to decide what is fair and what is just. So the market tends to be a free rider problem as a whole. And yeah, this picture explains it quite well. In a market, everyone's trying to do the best they can, where one company just enjoys and does not contribute to the market at all and takes a gain or benefit from it, is when the free rider problem starts to be noticeable and starts to exist. So another thing to look at is, how does equilibrium help? Well, equilibrium helps economists like us analyze and predict the behavior of groups and understand why free riding occurs in markets or in general. And analyzing equilibrium helps us design institutes which will help us regulate the functioning of a situation while reducing, or in some cases eliminating, the free rider issue. And an example of this could be to draft out a contract between roommates to pay £5 per head per week, so they could hire a cleaning service to keep everything in order. as well, since the lazy roommate is not helping, um, having him pay £5 for his work is the best feasible option they can do. So in this situation, they're optimizing as well as trying to put the free rider problem in equilibrium. And this can push the free riding individual to either cough off the £5 every week to clean up, or they can like do it themselves if they are not willing to pay. And this can lead to a reduction or even an elimination of free riding between roommates. So if he decides to pay for it good enough, and if he doesn't and starts to clean up himself, well, that leads to a reduction in free riding that was caused previously. Another great example of free riding problem, where we look at a greater bunch of people and few people just enjoying the fruits of other labels. So empiricism, moving on to our third principle, is when economists test their ideas using data, and data is used to determine whether theories about human behavior like optimization and equilibrium reflect with the actual human behavior and scenarios. Economics are also interested in understanding what's causing things to happen in the world. We can depict causation, and causation is not via a simple example. So an example of empiricism is hot days leads to a higher crowded beach, which tend to occur during the similar times in the year, i.e. the summer season. And this is because during hot days, during summer, people like to go to the beach, to go to swimming. And it's when we can say that people going swimming does not cause the temperature rise, rather than it is a national phenomena. So there is no relation whatsoever between temperature and people going to swimming. Rather, it is the other way around. Temperature causes people to go to swimming. People does not cause temperature to rise. And this is when we can say that economists use this idea to understand causation and correlation, which is something we will look at in the coming slides later on, and understand empiricism in a much greater depth. So, is economics good for you? What do you guys think? How do you feel studying economics? Is it good for you? Is it breaking a bank? Well, the costs and benefits of this course are something that every option has its own pros and cons. So the cost of studying economics at university is the tuition, the reduction in sleep, the stress, the living cost, the transport cost, i.e. the utility that you have to pay to study economics, to live on campus, etc. And you have to become more responsible with your finances. And the benefits is that economics turn to earn a higher wage than most professions in the current world, and they are seen to have more job options and job variations rather than other professions. Another major benefit is that economics is helps us understand the world through the economist's eyes. We start to see data, we start to see trends in our daily lives, we start to analyze things like opportunity cost, maybe ice cream or cake, and we start to use economics in our daily life to help with our decision making. So yeah, economics is both good and bad, but it's mostly good because you get a higher wage, and if that's what I think everyone is aiming for here anyways. So yeah. Okay, so this is the end of a slideshow. Obviously, we'll be looking at optimization, equilibrium, and empiricism in much greater depth in our coming lessons. So make sure to like and subscribe to Economic Odyssey. And if you guys have any questions, please add them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you for listening, and I hope you like the lesson.